Sometimes it's easy to feel like you are familiar with common objects that you interact with all the time, such as a globe. But did you know that the closest state to Africa is not Florida, but Maine? That can't be right. Let me get out a globe. Oh. When college students were asked to guess how long they thought the lines were on roads in America, most of them guessed about 2 feet, but the answer is actually 10 feet. At first you might think this is because when you're driving fast the lines look smaller, but even in a traffic jam they look small. It probably has more to do with looking ahead where the lines look smaller, and less to do with speed, but that may be a factor. Continuing with the theme of perceived lengths, your forearm is approximately the same length as your foot. I'd look behind you before testing out this one. Reno, Nevada is farther west than Los Angeles, and finally a basketball hoop is about the size of 2 basketballs. If you like map stuff, then Finland and North Korea are separated by just one country, which would probably be a very long drive. If you didn't want to drive so long, you could just drive to space if you could drive up, because it would only take an hour depending on where you define the edge of space. Being that high up might get you exposed to some negligible amounts of radiation though. If you fly a little or even a lot, you have absolutely nothing to worry about. However, people in the aviation industry are actually considered radiation workers. You could also survive falling out of an airplane without a parachute, and falling from an airplane is probably better than falling out of a very tall building, since you reach terminal velocity anyway, and at least from an airplane you can find a soft spot to land, assuming you have enough oxygen. You don't really have to worry about the radiation part at all, since you are always being exposed to radiation. You can actually visit Chernobyl for short periods of time without any negative health effects. If you prefer to drive, then you might want to go on a road trip. If you don't have a car to start this journey, you might as well just buy a truck, since their engines can easily get over 1,000,000 miles. If you don't know which side the gas tank is on in your car, just look at the gas gauge. There should be an arrow indicating which side it's on. Now it's time to make you feel old. 9/11 is farther away from today than 9/11 was from the destruction of the Berlin Wall. 1990 is farther away from today than 1990 was from the moon landing. If you're 35, your birth is farther away from today than your birth was from the end of World War II. Now getting a little older, Cleopatra lived closer to today than the construction of the Great Pyramids, and the woolly mammoth was around when those pyramids were being built. The T-Rex lived closer to today than the time when the Stegosaurus was living. And finally, just to make any Cubs fans feel worse, the last time your team won the World Series, the Ottoman Empire existed. And to make Cornhusker fans feel bad, or good depending on how you look at it, when you play, your stadium becomes the 3rd biggest city in the state. The youngest known mom to give birth was only 5 years old, and kidneys don't get removed during a kidney transplant. There are over 200 corpses on Mount Everest, and the average American drinks about 44.7 gallons of soda per year, or about 487 cans. Being a little bit healthier, the average person walks around the world about 3 to 4 times in their life. If you average 8,000 to 10,000 steps per day, then you will walk about 115,000 miles. If you average 3 miles an hour, that's over 4 years of walking in your lifetime. The doctor who supposedly found a link between vaccines and autism lost his medical license and got charged for fraud. We share 50% of our DNA with bananas. The average NFL game only has about 11 minutes of playing time. The St. Louis Olympic Games in 1904 had grease pole climbing, rock throwing, and even mud fighting as events. Earth is the only planet in our solar system that is not named after a god. There are more vacant houses in the US than homeless people, and a hummingbird weighs less than a penny. John D. Rockefeller would be worth $340 billion in today's money, and $41 billion worth of gift cards went unspent from 2005 to 2011. The longest sniper shot was 1.54 miles away, or 2.47 kilometers. It took about 3 seconds to reach its target. The space station experiences about 90% of the gravity that we experience on Earth. 29% of San Francisco's air pollution comes from China, and cosmic rays can cause computer glitches. The person who bought Windows2000.com was named Bob, and Microsoft happened to own Bob.com, part of the deal was that they would switch domains. The lead guitarist of Queen has a PhD in astrophysics. And before getting more serious, it's important to point out that you could technically live the rest of your life without any food or water. The world is all about perspective, as you may have learned from the beginning of this video. It is astonishing to think that a speck of dust is halfway the size between an atom and the Earth. And scaled down, Earth is also smoother than a billiards ball. Things that are also very small are the synapses in your brain. There are more of them than there are stars in the galaxy. Your brain and the rest of your body are still mostly empty space. If the space between atoms was removed from every human on Earth, it would fit into a ball the size of a sugar cube. That is assuming you remove all space between subatomic particles. There is no fine line between the edge of an atom, only where it's extremely improbable to find electrons. What actually happens at the atomic level is honestly beyond human comprehension. You are still unthinkably large and powerful, and at the same time small too. There are more microbes on your skin than there are people on the planet. All the molecules lined up in 1 teaspoon of water would reach 30 billion miles or 50 billion kilometers. If you folded a piece of paper in half about 42 times, it would reach the moon. If you folded it in half again, it would go twice as far as the moon. Right now you are probably thinking I'm talking about folding up the 11-inch side, ripping it in half 42 times, and stacking them on top of each other. But I'm actually talking about folding in half the 0.1 centimeter piece of paper. Actually folding in the paper in half like this. If you could somehow do this 42 times, it would reach the moon. Keep in mind that a 500-page book is about 5 centimeters. The reason that this is happening is because it's exponentially doubling every time. If you fold the piece of paper in half once, which is about 0.01 centimeters as mentioned earlier, it doubles. And if you fold it in half again, it doubles. Once you fold it in half about 10 times, it's about a decimeter. And after that, it's 2 decimeters. Eventually it will reach the size of the moon in 42 times approximately. In fact, if you folded it in half 94 times, it would reach the edge of the observable universe. Keep in mind that this is purely hypothetical, since you obviously can't fold a piece of paper in half that much, and if you could, it would eventually get down to the atomic level, where you literally could not fold it in half anymore. There are also more chess games than atoms in the observable universe, and if you shuffle a deck of cards, then they will mathematically be in an order never before seen, at least within the observable universe. Just think about the changes you winning a game at the casino exactly in the fashion that you did would have on the world. Then realize that every single possibility completely changed the future of the universe because of the chaos theory, which is for a later video. It makes you feel pretty powerful, doesn't it? Overall, you interact with the world every day, and as amazing as it is, sometimes you just have to realize that your perspective and your assumptions may have been wrong. Thank you for watching.